this is one of the initial talks of the whole course on rational drug use that we are working on, and you will be doing in the course of the next few weeks. And this is today what I will do is I will introduce you to a different set of national guidelines. First, let us look at the National Health Policy. The National Health Policy is a policy introduced in 2017, and it is launched by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and it was a comprehensive outlook on various aspects of health-related tangibles. It gives vision and direction to the core areas of health in the country and at national and state levels, so as to act as a guiding tool. Many components of this are related to the rational use of medicines, which is why it is relevant to us. And what we will do today is look at a bit of a snapshot of it. So, for example, for medical devices and public health, improving public sector capacity for manufacturing essential drugs. So, all this is related to our rational drug use, health technology assessment, etc. We then move on to a very important component of rational drug use, which is the essential list of medicines. Essential list of medicines are those medicines which are useful or needed to cover the most disorders in the population that you are serving, that you're serving. And the National List of Medicines in India was published first in 1996 and has been revised thrice subsequently in 2003, 2011 and 2015. And Dr. Mansukh Mandaviya, the Union Health Minister, released the revised version of the National List of Essential Medicines on 13th of September 2022. And in the current edition of the National List of Essential Medicines includes a total of 384 drugs, with 34 drugs additional, and 26 from the previous list have been dropped. So you see this national essential drug list, or even if it is a local essential drug list, whatever it is, it has to be dynamically changed because the disease profile changes, the process changes, the method changes, everything changes, and therefore it is a very dynamic list, and it changes at least once in 3 or 4 years. It's important that we realize that the following criteria are used to decide which drugs should be used, that they are useful in diseases which is a public health problem. They have to be licensed or approved by the DCGI for that indication, have proven efficacy and safety profile based on scientific evidence, be comparatively cost effective, be aligned with the current treatment guidelines, recommended under the national health programs, for example, ivermectin as part of the accelerated program for lymphatic filariasis. When more than one medicine is available from the same therapeutic class, one prototype is utilized, which is the best suited in that class. The price of the total treatment should be considered and not the unit price of the medicine. Fixed dose combinations are usually not included, and vaccines as and when are included in the universal immunization program. For example, the rotavirus vaccine is included. The Ministry of Health has also formulated guidelines for strengthening diagnostics, and the essential drug list provides, this essential diagnostics list provides an expanded range of tests and complementary guidelines. Existing tests, which are in vitro diagnostics, and others, have been reviewed and are available. The available basket of tests expanded based on inputs from experts, and the ADL has been the essential diagnostics list has been developed for all level of healthcare. Again, just like the essential drug list, you have this for primary, secondary, and tertiary care. And the list also encompasses tests relevant for the new programs such as health and wellness centers under the Pradhan Mantri Jana Arogya Yojana. Essential diagnostic lists is the first ever in the country. A very holistic pathway was considered for compilation of this list. And there have been several consultations with stakeholders to discuss the approach in India. The first consultation was for this essential diagnostic list was before the launch of the WHO Essential Diagnostics List, and there were many meetings. There were meetings organized with equipment manufacturers and lab service providers as well to understand the perspective and expectations which were duly considered. A comprehensive list of standard resources on regulatory provisions from the country and WHO EDL was also referred along with the ongoing harmonization initiatives. Based on the feedback from the national health programs and all other consultations, the draft National Essential Diagnostic List was put on the feedback from was based on the feedback from national health programs and all other consultations. A draft NEDL was put up for comments on December 2018 for approximately a month. The next thing that we have to consider is the containment of antimicrobial resistance. That is the other policy that our country has come up with. And for the national responses towards containment of AMR, India has been duly working progressively. In 2010, a national task force was set up which had to launch a policy, which led to the launch of a policy for containment of AMR by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and adoption of the Jaipur Declaration by health ministers of Southeast Asia region. In 2012, Ministry introduced a national program on AMR as pilot basis, which is a full-fledged program. This was further strengthened by ICC tag and CWG governance mechanisms in place. In April 2017, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare launched the National Action Plan on AMR and Delhi Declaration on AMR. The National Action Plan for the Antimicrobial Resistance is launched as one of the activities, and it contains a number of programs that are
recording in progress,
including development of a national action plan for antimicrobial resistance specifically, and so on. Now, the AMR strategic priorities are awareness and understanding, knowledge and evidence, including surveillance of AMR and laboratories, infection prevention and control, including healthcare, animal health, and community. Because remember, animals can also lead to antimicrobial resistance because they are given antibiotics, and this is the flesh is eaten by human beings, and that can cause resistance in them because they get exposed to those antibiotics. Optimize use by changing regulations, access, and antimicrobial use. Antimicrobial stewardship program in humans as well as in animals and agriculture. New medicines, diagnostics, vaccines, innovations, and financing, and international collaborations, national collaboration, and state level collaborations are part of the programs to promote antimicrobial resistance or prevent antimicrobial resistance. There are state action plans also.
Recording stopped.
Take this, which is, for example, this is the Kerala Antimicrobial Resistance Strategic Action Plan, and it gives you apart from the messages and everything, gives you strategic priorities 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It also talks about monitoring and evaluation. We come to the next strategy for rational drug use, and that is standard treatment guidelines. And there are many states of our country which have got standard treatment guidelines. Take, for example, the ICMR's guidelines. You have from Delhi, DISPRUD, and you have the National Center for Disease Control. I think this is the guidelines for antimicrobial use in infectious diseases. There are many others, and different guidelines for different diseases, for every disease. And actually, this should be based on what you use in your local facility. And that should give rise to the standard treatment guidelines, which will in turn give rise to the essential drug list. There is, for example, the National Policy for Containment of Antimicrobial Resistance 2011, Standard Operating Procedures for. It's also very important that you have SOPs for how to do the tests which detect this antimicrobial resistance. So all this is documented in the more important thing is hospital infection control guidelines. And of course, having stewardship program in which ICMR has taken a very big activity in this and done a lot towards. We come to the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, which is the official, and it has published the Indian Pharmacopoeia. That is its main job, which is a collection of authoritative procedures for analysis and specifications of their drugs, identity and purity and strength. And the standards of the IP are authoritative in nature and are enforced by the regulatory authorities for ensuring the quality of drugs in India. During quality assurance and at time of dispute in the court of law, the IP standards are legally acceptable. Remember this, IP standards are very important. IPC works in close coordination with all stakeholders for for when they write the IP, and public reviews and comments are given special attention while IP standards are being raised or written, and the principle of openness, justice, and fairness is kept in mind during compiling and editing the contents of the Indian Pharmacopoeia. IPC has developed monograph submission checklist, which is required from the donor of the monograph. Now, the salient features of the IP 2018 includes keeping in view the essential requirements for harmonization of analytical methods, general chemical tests, and thin layer chromatography for identification of an article have been almost eliminated, and more specific infrared, ultraviolet spectrophotometer and HPLC tests have been given more importance. The concept of relying on published infrared spectra as a basis for identification has been continued, and the use of chromatographic methods has been greatly extended to cope with the need for more specific assays, and in particular in assessing the nature and extent of the impurities in ingredients and products. The 2018 version has one 70 new chemical monographs, including these, for example, 15 new herbal monographs, which include some of these, including belladonna dry extract, citronella oil, etc., juniper oil. New monographs on blood and blood-related products, including anti-D monoclonal blood grouping reagent, and so on. New monographs on six new monographs on biotechnology-derived therapeutic products, and 3 new monographs of radiopharmaceuticals. For example, the biotechnology-derived products including FSH, concentrated solution, FSH injection, and FSH itself, and so on. And the radiopharmaceuticals are gallium, sodium iodide, and sodium iodide. And 2 monographs of new monographs. There are multiple already existing, vaccines and immunoseras, and 14 monographs of veterinary non-biological products, which include veterinary albendazole, oral powder, amoxicillin powder, etc. Then we come to the next national publication, which is the National Formulary of India, which is essentially meant for the guidance of members of the medical profession, medical students, nurses, and pharmacists working in hospital and in sales establishments, and represents a broad consensus of medical opinion in respect to the drugs and their formulations, and provides the physician with a carefully selected therapeutic agents of proved effectiveness, which form the basis of national drug therapy. Certain monographs require the use of a chemical reference substance or a biological reference. Let me take you back to a previous. These are authentic specimens chosen and verified on the basis of their suitability for intended use as prescribed in the pharmacopoeia, and not necessarily suitable in other circumstances. IP reference substances, abbreviated to IPRS, referred to as an RS in the individual monographs, are issued by the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, IPC. They are the official standards to be used in cases of arbitration. Secondary standards, that is working standards, may be used for routine analysis, etc. And they are standardized against the international standards and reference preparations and which are established by the WHO. The potency is expressed in international units. Now, essentially, individual states also have produced their own guidelines. For example, I'm going to give you just an example with the Chhattisgarh efforts. The Chhattisgarh has its own essential drug list. Apart from the national essential drug list, Chhattisgarh has its own, which is more or less similar to the national essential drug list. The structure, the list of medicines will include medicines on priority of the health. So this is now with respect to what Chhattisgarh needs. So it will be different from the national national essential drug list. It will also be different from the WHO essential drug list. The list will further have structure depending on the level of healthcare, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So, for example, universal will be green, primary is blue, secondary is cream, tertiary is red, and medical college level is M, that is pink. Now, it is also recommended that each each health facility should have a drugs and therapeutics committee with doctors from multiple surgical fields in the hospital, a pharmacologist or a pharmacist, clinical pharmacist, a microbiologist, and a store in charge and a pharmacist. The committee would have the responsibility to make the essential list of medicines for their health facility. They would make this list based on disease profile and prevalence of patients coming to their health facilities. The list of medicines made would be based on standard treatment guidelines. The criteria of efficacy, safety, suitability, and cost would be the basic criteria that the committee members would the same guidelines as we have in the national list. There is a drug formulary, for example, in Chhattisgarh, the same as we have the national formulary. We have an anti-microbial policy for all healthcare facilities in Chhattisgarh. We have medical supply policy, and we have a report on the availability of generic medicines in public hospitals and public hospitals and health centers. There is a prescription analysis report in Chhattisgarh in 2014, which tells you what are the types of medicines that were prescribed. For example, I'm not sure I can read this. Oh, these are the places, and this is the methodology that is described. And the publication is given over here. Two medical colleges, district hospitals, community health centers, primary health centers, and total number of facilities for 100 with 50, 375, and so on. Chhattisgarh was the first state in India to list an essential drug list, and in 2011, the government set up the Chhattisgarh Medical Services Corporation Limited for centralized procurement. It is possible in a smaller state, but Tamil Nadu also has a wonderful procurement system, a centralized procurement system, which works very well for Tamil Nadu. Only 65% of the drugs were prescribed as generic medicines, and out of which 58% were made available to the patients. That is not really a good number. You should have 100% made available to the patients. And almost as much as possible should be prescribed in as a generic and not as a branded preparation. Then you look at the list of the availability of medicines, generic and branded, to patients of healthcare facilities. You can see that Raipur has a better availability of all medicines, while patients had to procure 30% of the medicines. But if you look at Bilaspur, only half of the medicines were available to the patients, and half of them they had to buy. So this is very important. So my take home message to you would be, understand that there are a number of um, guidelines in the country. The country has made great strides in having a number of national guidelines and policies, and you need to be familiar as pharmacists with these guidelines. Making an essential drug list for your own facility is a very, very useful methodology that will help you to make sure that the drugs are available to the patients at all times and that the patients are getting the correct medicines. I think I don't have 5 take home messages. I have only 2 take home messages. Remember that you can implement all this at your own healthcare facility, and you should do this. Thank you.